So I've heard it's up to $100 million in losses, but that's anecdotal. No one reports it because there's a lot of entities that don't really want you to know how bad it is. They don't want their insurer to know. They don't want the public to know.
A flip phone, a fax machine, and a pager walk into a bar. The bartender says, "What is this, a museum?" Technology moves fast. What was cutting edge 20 years ago is now more nostalgia than necessity. Sure, a flip phone can still make calls just fine, and a fax machine technically works okay. But why settle for fine when you can have better? If your back office technology still relies on email inboxes and manual workflows, it's time for an upgrade courtesy of ePay Manager powered by OTR Solutions. With ePay Manager, you can modernize your processes, streamline invoice audits, and automate payments with proactive workflows that don't rely on those email inboxes. The result? Faster invoicing, stronger security, and 50% lower back office costs. Don't let your business get stuck in the past like that pager you stopped carrying in 1999. Visit epaymanager.com or text ePayFC to 80483 to bring your back office into the modern age. Struggling to find and retain qualified staff while keeping costs in check? In today's competitive logistics landscape, this challenge can make or break your bottom line. Ameripol offers a solution that helps reduce staffing costs by over 50% without sacrificing quality. Born out of logistics, they understand transportation industry demands. They provide talented EU-based professionals who seamlessly integrate with your team, allowing you to scale operations efficiently. Don't let staffing challenges hinder growth. Optimize your workforce and boost profitability with Ameripol. Visit transport.ameripolstaffing.com to discover how Ameripol can help your business operate more efficiently. Today's episode is brought to you by Wirebee, the AI-powered call automation platform designed to supercharge your freight brokerage. Tired of wasting time on unqualified carriers? Wirebee helps you cover loads faster by screening calls, preventing fraud, and letting your reps focus on high-value connections. Plus, it seamlessly integrates your TMS and compliance tools. Get more done in less time with smarter call handling. Check out wirebee.com to see how it works. All right, Michael Caney, Chief Commercial Officer at Highway. It's been exactly a year since we last spoke. And I know last year when we had the interview come out, TIA followed like a week or two afterwards. And I remember we were speaking at TIA saying there was a decent amount of traction from the podcast episode. And I know that our audience enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to kind of doing a recap of the last year in freight fraud and also discussing what like 2025 holds and also the new product that Highway's launching. So Michael, thanks for coming back on the show. How are you today?
I'm good, man. How are you? How's Poland? How's the weather? We talked about the weather in Chattanooga before we jumped on. What is Poland like this time of year?
So today it's probably like 45 and very windy. I went to go run a 5K like right before this, and I didn't know it would be so windy. But it was very, very windy, about 45 degrees, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. You know, when you start running, it gets warmer. There were a few really nice days so far. Like it was like, I think 60 degrees, 70 degrees. But right now, got a little bit cooler. The springtime though, like next month should be really nice. And
I feel like this is that time of year where like you can just get like a little happier because you're emerging from the gray of winter, no matter what part of the world you're in. And like, it's a little crispy, it's a little sunny, and you can just kind of be happy about, about the weather.
Definitely. I agree, Michael, and I'm also excited about TIA. TIA is my favorite freight conference every year. I feel like we'll see each other next month in San Antonio. And I know like
it's in my home state, man, the Republic of Texas. So I'm really excited. I hope you bring your cowboy boots and eat some Tex-Mex and drink margaritas and do all of the Texas things.
So funny enough, I was just in Texas 12 days ago. I went to El Paso, Texas for 2 days. Yeah, I had a last minute trip out there and I visited Mesilla Valley Transportation. So I actually ended up being in Texas. Was just there 12 days ago and there was a huge dust storm. So I didn't get to see much. Yeah, it was nuts.
I mean, you were in West Texas where there's like not a tree, not a shrub,
nothing.
Straight line winds.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Michael, where are you exactly from in Texas? I mean, Texas is huge. Texas is bigger than Poland. I think it's twice as big as Poland. It's literally
its own country. Just ask any of us that are from there. We'll tell you that. I'm from Dallas. I'm from North Texas.
Okay.
That's where
just like Highway. Highway's headquartered in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, man, it's so ironic. I moved to Chattanooga in 2017, and now, I do this thing with a company that's headquartered in Dallas. And you would think I'd move back, but they got teenage kids in private school, and they got deep roots in Chattanooga. We've been here 8 years, so here we are. But I'm headed there tonight, right? So it's Chattanooga only has, I don't know, 7 or 8 direct flights, and one of them is to Dallas every day, so I can get there really easy.
Yeah, American Airlines, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. So you're in Chattanooga.
Yep.
Highway is headquartered in Dallas. However, you do have a large presence in Chattanooga. Can you a little bit talk about that? Like, what's that split like?
Yeah, man. So one of the things that's interesting, when I moved here, I didn't realize what a freight town Chattanooga is. And much like the backhaulers exit created, Coyote, right? Like much in Chicago, like you can kind of play this like, I was actually talking to Jeff Silver the other day and told him that when I was training in brokerage, I used to play 6 degrees of American backhaulers, like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, where I would take the top 100 and trace all of their lineage back to American backhaulers. Chattanooga was the same way when Access America had a big exit, or when people would leave US Express or Covenant, and it kind of created this little freight economy in Chattanooga. And that's why I came here. I came here to run a brokerage. And so after 7 or 8 years here, when I started at Highway, I just kind of built a network. Mm-hmm. And so hired a couple of salespeople that used to work for me, added Mike Hamill, who I think you've met, who was an old American backhaulers, AFN guy, ran US Express's logistics business. And so we just ended up with like 5-6 people here, and the coffee shops got really like not optimal. I got to the point where we saw each other more on the road at conferences than we did in town. And so we just took some space, and I think we're up to 10 or 11 people here now. So a lot of customer success, sales, kind of commercial stuff sits in Chattanooga. So it's fun. It's neat. It's neat being here.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, Chattanooga's like, it definitely caught my eye just like visiting, and it's quite small. It's like 300,000 people, maybe even less, right around there.
Well, I think in the county it's like 400,000. I think in the city it's less than 200.
Okay. And then because I've been there at F3 a couple of times. I visited FreightWaves, I visited TextLocate before, and just did actually like a whole day of visiting brokerages with Ryan. And it was just kind of like cool. Like every like block has like a brokerage, and it's small. It's definitely a unique town in the US when it comes to logistics. So having a presence out there is super important.
It's cool. And you can build the interesting thing is not different from Chicago. It can become a bit incestuous, right? And people leaving one brokerage to go to another, or leaving a brokerage to come here. Like it's hard. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes like people want to come work here, and it's like, you work at my customer. That's so the only problem is in a big, small town, you just have to be cognizant of like relationships and what you do with those. And so that's the only challenging thing about it being a big, small town with such a concentration in one industry. And so, I think one of the things that's interesting about Chattanooga is a lot of the senior leaders of the brokerages and tech companies try to do a great job of just being open with each other and realizing kind of we're all in the same business. And, but that's that. If there's a challenge, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Hey there, amazing listeners. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on our podcast, we need your support. It will only take a moment, but it would mean the world to us. Please make sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to share with one of your friends that would enjoy our content. Your engagement helps us reach more people and bring more awesome episodes to you. Thanks a million, and thanks for being part of the podcast community.
And then also Dallas, Texas is kind of like a booming freight town, isn't it? Like, there's like a lot of freight companies out there.
Man, there are, but it's really, the thing about Dallas is it's so spread out, right? When you think about, big city. I mean, the brokerage that I came up in is 45 minutes from the highway headquarters, right? Just with traffic. And so when people think about moving around, like you couldn't leave Bear or Pepsi Logistics or something like that and go to work for Echo, because Echo, like you didn't want to make the transit. Right. Like, my buddy runs Bedrock Logistics, and he actually has an office downtown and an office up north where I used to live, because he couldn't recruit from both ends of town. He had a network, and he just needed 2 different offices. The other thing about Dallas is there's so much finance, technology. There's so much industry in Dallas, right? And so many people have moved headquarters, like Toyota. I mean, either people have headquarters or headquarters number 2 in Dallas, that college graduates are not leaving school thinking about being a freight broker. If anybody's working in supply chain in Dallas, if that's on their mind, they're thinking about an analyst role at a Toyota or a Pepsi. So it's not the freight town the way that you would think of, like Atlanta. Like it's actually easier to go make a footprint in Atlanta or Nashville than it is in Dallas if you're a freight broker.
Okay. Interesting. I would love to do a more deep dive on like the geography of like brokerages and kind of discussing like the hot pockets, especially for fraud. I feel like that's quite interesting, but that might be a little bit later on. I know there's definitely a lot of topics we want to cover today. And Michael, we spoke last year, exactly a year ago. We did a podcast.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, I know. Time flew by. It's nuts. But I mean, highway is really on the map now. I have a feeling that like everyone I talk to like knows highway very well. Like you've left a big footprint on the industry, especially since you're helping so many brokerages at the moment. And so like I kind of wanted to hear your take, hear your perspective on like what's 2025 gearing up like for brokerages and carriers when it comes to fraud and cargo theft. Like, does it look like it's getting better at all, or is it getting worse?
Yeah, Paul, it's honestly, and I'm not trying to be obtuse. It's hard to know. I can tell you for our customers, we're doing a better job of protecting them. Now, is fraud overall getting better? I don't know, man. You'd have to really ask Scott Cornell. You'd have to ask, the guys at CargoNet. But one of the conversations that Scott and I actually had last week, and Scott's probably the best mind in this business when it comes to strategic cargo theft and fraud. And one of the things that he and I have talked about, because I shared some of our data with him, is because he's working on the Hill trying to get Congress to understand the nature of the problem. And I think the sentiment that he and I have landed on that we share, and you'd obviously have to ask him, is that it's really impossible to quantify the fraud problem because of how hidden it still is. Right. And so we'll take the example of like all the pilferage. I'm sure you've heard about this, Paul, right? All the electronics pilferage that went months without being known, right? Because they were doctoring bills of lading. And like, that's a place where highway doesn't live. Like we don't live in the bill of lading. We don't live on the dock where the product is being counted and received. And so a carrier can run clean. I've talked about this, right? Guys will hold MCs, they'll run them out of different parts of the world and they'll run clean. And when it comes to pilferage, like they can do that for a long time. And so how do you quantify that? So I've heard it's up to $100 million in losses, but that's anecdotal. No one reports it because there's a lot of entities that don't really want you to know how bad it is. They don't want their insured to know. They don't want the public to know. And so I think what's really difficult to quantify is the true nature of the problem. And when we look at our own data and look at the amount of overlap in authorities, overlap in equipment, overlap in ELD connections, and the types of shadows that bad actors try to create, like it's hard to know how many shadowy, I'll call them, gray area entities are actually operating that we haven't found them yet. And I always go back to this analogy of the casing the neighborhood. Like how many entities they're operating and they're moving freight and they're really doing it to gain intelligence around which brokers move which freight. And that's the thing that's hard to quantify. So and to answer your question in terms of better or worse, I don't know. I know that we're using those attack vectors to understand how to better protect highway customers. And we've gotten pretty good at that.
Mm-hmm. Has there been any like new kind of tactics that you've noticed in the last year?
And it's not as much new as it is more efficient. So there's only so many ways you can steal freight, and it starts in the communication channels, right? So how can I kind of brute force my way into learning about a load or learning about a network via email or phone? So if I can't get onboarded, right, or if I can't get into someone's ecosystem right now because highways locked it down, or even there's other vendors that are doing some stuff that make it harder. How can I just learn? How can I get intel? And so what I would say is the bad actors have gotten better about spoofing, whether it's like I saw one this morning, like DAT Solutions wants to onboard to highway. I don't know if you saw it on LinkedIn. Did you see that? Like, yeah. It's like highway onboard. Like, I don't know. I think we're up to blocking 5 or we're reporting 5 or 10 domains a week. So what I would say is they've got.
Quick, Michael, sorry to interrupt you. You said you're reporting domains. Like, I'm just curious, like if someone did have a domain to report, how could they do that?
Yeah, just I have to think of the email address. Escalations@highway.com, I think is the email address, or operations. I'll get back to you, but our carriers are really good about like, oh man, here's another one. And so we have to report them all the time. They're always out of certain parts of Europe, as you can imagine. When we look at the IPs. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about which countries?
Like the one this morning, like somebody put it on LinkedIn. That's in the comments. Like, it was registered in Russia. Okay. So it's always Russia, Pakistan. There's 5 or 6 countries where it always comes from. So we have to be vigilant about even people impersonating highway. And so a lot of that is like we have an investigations team that just constantly looks for ways that bad actors are actually trying to use highway to gain credentials. So I guess what I would say that's really changed from a year ago, Paul, is it was easier a year ago to kind of brute force your way into a freight broker's network via just a packet or an insurance certificate. And we've drilled in so much to the load level, the carrier's capability, the truck, what the actual identity and the physical presence of the carrier, that it's harder to brute force your way in. And so the answer is to gain intelligence. Can I just learn about a load? Can I just get in to get one load and then steal 4 or 5? Okay. And so I would say if you're a broker, like the place you got to be really vigilant is in your inbox or on your phone system and in your own digital experience. So you've got to use our solutions to really understand should a carrier be doing certain things in your digital experience? Like, should a carrier with 2 dry vans be searching for all of your refrigerated freight? Should a carrier with a physical footprint in the Southeast be in your digital experience searching for loads out of California? No, they shouldn't. They've never been there, right? Should a carrier with 3 trucks be trying to book 20 loads at a time in your digital experience, right? And so, bad actors are looking for places where there's lower friction and they can hide a little bit, right? Where a human may not be doing something. And that's where technology has to come in, right? It's the same KYC stuff I've talked about, right? And so I would say the biggest change is our ability to get to the load level, get into the booking validation, get into the shipping validation, and make sure that the carrier that's actually on the load is doing what they're supposed to be doing.
ePay Manager, powered by OTR Solutions, is a back office automation and carrier payments platform that revolutionizes brokerage back offices with their proactive invoicing workflow, a centralized portal that gets you out of your email. Learn more about ePay by visiting epaymanager.com or text ePayFC to 80483 to see what they can do for your brokerage. Would you say, Michael, that like stealing freight is what's most prevalent when it comes to like all the issues? Because I know like a few years ago it was double brokering, then it was scamming, and now is that like the main problem that like brokers are dealing with?
Yeah, I think I hear less about the like misdirection, your load's in a warehouse, give me $10,000. We don't see as much as we used to, but when we see it, it's theft. And for most of what we see is preventable, honestly. I mean, we saw 5 or 6 thefts last week that are preventable. The other thing I do want to make the audience aware of is that another one that you've got to be careful of are your rate confirmations. And so like we have a solution to solve that, but it's difficult sometimes. Sometimes my customers don't want to change their workflow, right? They sometimes still like to do things. They want that power of the rep emailing the rate confirmation, and really we've got a way to secure that. So if you're my customer and you're listening, like, you really need to let me secure your rate confirmation, because, and this has been happening forever. I mean, I remember when my rate confirmations like 15 years ago were floating around the internet. But now if any place that's not secure, right, where they don't have to sign in and do something and prove who they are, they will use that information to that's not traceable to go and do something. So they'll doctor your rate confirmation up and use it and impersonate you. And so I think the other place you have to be really careful is, where's your rate confirmation going? And if you're a highway broker, like you shouldn't actually be sending out a document attached to an email anymore. Like we have a way to protect that. And if you're a carrier, you've got to be really careful about receiving a rate confirmation attached to an email. Like you got to verify that broker, because you could be a carrier unknowingly getting a doctored rate confirmation from someone impersonating a legitimate freight broker. And if you're the motor carrier, like you're out on that. Like you can't, you're going to either, that shipment's going to get misdirected or you're not going to get paid. And then you've heard these stories, man. The load that's too good to be true. And I got that rate confirmation and it got me out of Florida or it got me out of somewhere. And so if you're a carrier, you got to be really careful about receiving rate confirmations attached to an email.
Have you noticed like carriers and brokers? I mean, I would say probably yes, but like what I'm trying to get at more is like, what have you seen in terms of the behavior changes when it comes from the brokers and carriers? Like they're obviously getting smarter when it comes to like, seeing potential like, scams or seeing like, an email address that, has a misplaced letter versus like the real domain. Like this education of, the brokers and carriers to be made more aware, like, is it like picking up speed? Is it going like in the right, like, I guess, like, do you think that it's been easier now to like talk to these carriers and brokers? Like I'm trying to like maybe get your mind on like, how are the carriers and brokers like, reacting to all this? Like, are they actually, I know it's kind of loaded, but trying to hear your thoughts. And
no, man, I think, a lot of it's anecdotal, right? We hear from our own customer base and we hear from carriers. You see things in the public domain in different places. And we field everything from complaints to compliments. And so to overgeneralize it, right, to be simplified, I would say there's two camps, right? When it comes to the motor carrier world, there's still a culture, and you probably appreciate this because of the amount of carriers you interact with. There's still a little bit of a culture among a large group of motor carriers. I'm a victim. Everybody's out to get me. And if you ask me to do anything, you're invading my privacy. You're trying to get data to suppress the rates. I've never seen that group of carriers also talk about how to just better run their business or be better operators. So there's this very loud contingent of everyone's out to get me. And what we try to do with a lot of humility is say, man, we're not out to get you. We're actually trying to help you not receive impersonated loads, not allow somebody to impersonate you if you're a 5, 10, 15, 20 truck carrier, because you're the most likely person to be, right? And we're also trying to get you to stop doing dumb things like sell your MC in a McDonald's parking lot for $5,000 and then help the thieves use your MC to steal freight. Literally happened last week. Guy sold his MC on Facebook Marketplace, met the guy in a McDonald's parking lot to sign some paperwork, and then proceeded to share all of the two-factor codes to all of his various credential sites so the guy could steal the freight. Now, who's the criminal? The buyer of the MC or the guy that sold it? Like, Paul, do you think he didn't know what was happening? Like, normally you sell a business and you're like, I sold my business. Have a great day. I'm going to go do whatever I do now. Why would you sell a business and then, like, this is not your responsibility? Like, you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. And so I think that what I would really encourage motor carriers to understand is that for that group of carriers that thinks everyone's out to get them, like they're really not. And within the carrier community, there are carriers doing really bad things. And it would be really helpful if motor carriers would kind of like police themselves. One of the things we're seeing in freight brokerage is that's starting to happen. Like we're starting to see freight brokers tell other freight brokers like, hey man, you play stupid games, you're going to win stupid prizes. Like you don't have, like, fraud's now a choice. And I think the other thing that we're seeing, which Highway's hoping to help with, is the consolidation of freight brokers. Like there are a lot of freight brokers that do want to exploit motor carriers. They treat them poorly. They do try to use data to game the rates. You talk about the one and done carrier. And look, I think those brokers should go away. I don't think they have any place in the modern freight ecosystem, right? But what we are seeing is a lot of brokers. And look, we service close to 900 of them, right? Which is not all of them, but it's a lot of them. that are really trying to say, man, how do I find the best carriers and take better care of them? How to pay them faster? Like, I don't want to use as many carriers. Highway, if you can help me find carriers that I can load more often and I can treat them better, I don't want all the noise in my network. And so I think what we still have to get past is that trust place. I mean, there's been 20 years of just this kind of back and forth. I call it the kind of who's holding the gun thing, like depending on the rate cycle. And so, I mean, it's a long-winded answer, but I think those are kind of the two groups. Mm-hmm. Right, there's a group of carriers. It's like, oh my God, everybody's out to get me. Every question is them trying to hurt me. There's a group of carriers. It's like, look, if we actually work together on this, long term, this will be better. Right? Like, I don't want to wait 60 days for receivables. So one of the narratives is like, you should just go direct to shippers. Great. Can you afford to be a bank if you're a 20 truck motor carrier? Because the shipper's not going to pay you for 60 days. Now, that freight broker is going to pay you in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. And they're going to go be the bank and chase that shipper for their money for the next 60 days. Right. And so that's one of the things, like brokers provide a lot of liquidity to small carriers. And so if we can help the world, one of the things we talk about is the reduction of the surface area of risk. And so one of the things we want to help carriers do is reduce their own surface area of risk and say, hey, here's the brokers you should be working with. They're going to give you legitimate freight. They're going to pay you really quickly. Hey, brokers, here's the carriers you should be working with. So if we can get the noise out of your network, then what you have is also a focus area. These are the carriers you should be talking to. Ignore all these noisy carriers, right? Talk to these carriers, pay them really quickly, give them a lot of liquidity, give them preference on your best freight. And so that's the kind of culture we're trying to advocate for. How fast is it working, Paul? I don't know. We'll see. We've only been at this 2.5 years, so a lot of our data is just not old. No, I said a lot of words there. I hope I'm
that was great.
The story well.
You did. And I think there's a lot of value in what you just said. And I obviously year over year, I do see an improvement. People like are noticing like the signs of a scam, more. And if it's too good to be true, it usually is. So that was very valuable, Michael. And there's a new product from Highway coming out soon that we're going to be discussing here shortly. I did want to touch on the topic of like government interference in this. You did mention that Scott is working with Congress, if I'm not mistaken, to or at least he's trying to spread the word. Tell us a little bit from the government side of things. How is that looking? Has there been progress made? What kind of update? How has it changed year over year?
I don't know. I'm a Reagan guy. Like, the scariest words are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Like, I don't know. The government's going to do what the government's going to do. Whatever. There are a lot of people that waste a lot of calories on the internet griping about who just got appointed and their lawyers and that's fine. Whatever. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they can. I think there's some pretty simple things they could do. Just like, look, why I don't hear a lot about containers being stolen from a port? Because like you have to have a TWIC card to get in there. Like, there's some basic things they could do. I don't know if they're going to do it. I try to be helpful in terms of data and intel for the folks that are lobbying and trying to get things to change.
Ameripol offers a solution that helps reduce staffing costs by over 50% without sacrificing quality. Visit transport.ameripolstaffing.com to discover how Ameripol can help your business operate more efficiently. Michael, I do want to talk a little bit about countries that are involved in all this.
Okay.
I hope you don't mind. Okay. So I know a lot of our audience would want to know, like, who are the top countries like involved in like the cargo theft, double brokering, scamming, etc.?
Eastern Europe and Pakistan.
So Eastern Europe
with a broad brush. Yeah.
Okay. Can we discuss specifically which Eastern European countries?
Man, I don't have the data in front of me. I would be reaching. I will say, where's that big carrier from? That we talk about? I don't want to name them, but
what's Serbia?
Yeah, that's a big one. Serbia, Poland, Russia.
Poland.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of, but here's the problem. Here's honestly the problem. I don't want to unfairly disparage. The problem is that there are a lot of legitimate like companies operating from there. Mm-hmm. And so it's really terrible to just say everybody from there is wrong. I can tell you that there's more correlation with those stealing freight
Mm-hmm.
that have only accessed highway from outside North America. I can tell you there's a positive correlation to
Mm-hmm.
theft and fraud to motor carriers who only access their profile from outside North America. I can tell you that there's a positive correlation. I can also tell you there's a lot of legitimate. I can't remember the. I think it's Uzbekistan. I can't remember, but there's someone that wants to partner with us to help certify operators in those countries, so that brokers know, like, hey, if these countries like have some kind of credential, like they're legitimate, right? They're screening their employees, they've got data privacy controls in place, like they're doing things. And so that's some of the noise that we're trying to sift through, because you've got legitimate first generation Americans trying to make an honest living in North America that are unfairly grouped. And so that's how we got into identity proofing and trying to allow legitimate owners to prove who they are. And so what I would say is, like, it's less about where you're operating from and more about what level of transparency are you willing to provide, because you understand, like, hey, it's not fair. Like, this is why we can't have nice things, right? Because some people do bad things. But like, if I'm willing to provide a certain amount of transparency, like highways willing to help me credentialize myself to show myself as being a good actor. And so I think it's less about like country of origin and more about understanding that there's a problem that we're dealing with, and are you willing to be really transparent about how you operate? And what I would tell you is there are folks that operate offices in here and in Europe that actually are more transparent than some carriers in North America, because they get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. I would love to learn more about the people that are scamming here in Poland. I could go knock on their door, but that's a topic for another day, Michael. Okay, so Highway for Carriers. This is a new product that Highway's launching. Tell us a little bit about this, or as much as you can.
No. So it's out. I mean, there's a press release. You can go click on the link. Here's the interesting thing. They wouldn't let me put this in the PR. I would call it Highway for legitimate carriers. Like, it's not a free for all. Come sign up and do whatever you want. Highway. One of the things that we do acknowledge, when we first got into the business, Paul, it was a mad dash to stop the bleeding for our customers, and we gained a lot of momentum with the top 100 brokers really quickly. I think there's one top 10 broker that's still deciding how they want to work with us. So we've got a majority of the top 100 freight brokers. And we weren't a company that went out raising multiple rounds of capital and beating our chest about capital raises. And so, but why am I saying that? We wanted to run really profitable and efficient and be able to control our destiny and serve freight brokers really well. So all of our focus was around like stopping the bleeding and developing fraud solutions to protect the network. In doing so, we asked a lot of carriers. We asked a lot of them in terms of changing some of their behavior, changing the way that they were willing to work with and communicate with brokers. And for the majority of the carrier community, they stepped up and understood. And like we are just so proud and humbled by the network that we've developed with motor carriers. So we feel like it's our moral responsibility to give them a tool, right? Like, they've done a lot. They've done a lot for us. They've done a lot for the freight broker community. They've done a lot for just the North American truckload community in general to participate in stopping fraud. Like when a motor carrier chooses to participate and be connected and be transparent, just that act alone, they're doing a lot to stop fraud and to change the culture, right? And so Highway for Carriers is like, okay, we've got a little bandwidth now. Like, we owe the carrier community the ability to log in, see what we see about them, check and see if a broker's got valid credit through a company like Triumph, look at their overall connections and manage their profile. But these are carriers that can log into Highway and do that. These are vetted carriers that are connected, that aren't doing funny things. And by the way, that's free. Like, if you're that carrier, it costs you nothing. It's free. And so, I mean, that's honestly, it's kind of simple, but that's honestly what it is. And so there are a lot of small and mid-market brokers that if they're doing something bad, if they're turning around double brokering freight, or if they're participating in bad acts, like, we want to know that too. because we vet brokers, right? Like we have limits around how long a broker has to be in business to be our customer. And so we also want to know about brokers that are operating outside of ethical boundaries. And we want to give carriers, now this is not freight guards. This is not like you kicked my dog and you didn't pay me fast enough and I think you owe me detention, right? This is not that. But it is a way for carriers to be able to have a voice and say, hey, like I had a legitimate negative ethical or criminal experience with a freight broker. And so I would say those are the two things. I need to validate this broker. And if something goes wrong, I need to be able to tell somebody.
So like how will Highway be able to like validate, let's say like a situation that a carrier,
we typically investigate those things. We have a team that investigates.
Okay.
Some things are very black and white. They're very black and white, right? But if something is on a gray area, we have a team that investigates that will do that. We do the same thing with a carrier. Like there's certain reports that if a broker makes, we'll investigate the validity of that claim. So look, I mean, it's been live to a small group of carriers for a month or two. And it's public today. So if you're a motor carrier, like it's really easy. But the other thing that this allows is for a freight broker to go claim their identity, right? So I would say like if you're a smaller freight broker, if you're 10, 15, $20 million, you know, and you want to appear valid to a carrier, you got to come to Highway and claim your identity. You got to prove who your ownership is. And so one of the things that we're really interested in is like ownership changes, FMCSA changes, like just looking at fraud vectors, Paul, that expose people, right? People doing bad things with entities. And this helps us further shrink the world of good people that want to work together. That's what I would say. That's really what it's about.
I like that. I think that's very needed in this industry. Like you saw a lot of tools come up like in recent years of like broker 411. And it's just like, you know, it was difficult for those companies to actually create like a real product for the industry, just because like they don't have the, I guess, the ability to scale. Like Highway already has, you know, a large set of brokers. A lot of carriers are using it every day, logging in.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense to be able to scale that to the carrier side.
Yeah, we see over 25,000 unique interactions between carriers connecting with brokers every day. You know, like other platforms, we call that an onboard. We think of it more as a connection. And so we see a massive amount. And that's the thing, like a lot of people in the carrier community be like, oh, people only care about brokers. Well, look, y'all, brokers are where the density is. Like that's who has the freight, right? That's who has the intelligence. So you need the freight broker to help you build the density to better serve the carrier community. And so one of the things that we're thoughtful about is how to ultimately give the carrier a better experience when it comes to a variety of things in their workflow. Because if we only sell to freight brokers, we only serve one master, we do not sell to shippers. And so if we can provide a better motor carrier experience, if we can reduce their clicks, their app fatigue, then our customers benefit from that. Right. And so like this idea of like every freight broker needing to build some great unique digital experience, there's part of that. But really, Paul, like how often do you and I all day long sign in with our Apple ID or sign in with Google? To everywhere.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
Right. And so it's weird when you have to remember a username and password. Right. And so if sign in with Highway can give a great carrier a better digital experience across all of their freight brokers, the freight broker can give the carrier a better experience because they're not managing the noise of access management. Right. And the carrier gets to feel more protected and they get to have a faster, slicker experience. And so I think that's the other thing that we really think about too is how can we go faster for the carrier? How can the carrier have a better experience across the entire Highway network of freight brokers that allow them to have better connections and ultimately make more money? For the motor carrier, Paul, it's all about liquidity, right? Like you talk to your carrier friends, like, do they really want all these app features that everybody thinks they need? Or do they want like transparency about the load? And do they want to get paid really quickly?
Yep.
Right. They don't want to get okey doked. They don't want to get sent in for a 8 a.m. load that's actually an 8 p.m. load. Right. They don't want to have 20 rate reductions listed on their rate confirmation if they don't do the right things in a certain order. Like they don't want that experience. So the more trust that we can help people build, the more liquidity a motor carrier can have, hopefully.
Yeah. No, I mean, I foresee this changing the way the brokerages behave drastically in a good way. because, for the longest time, brokers weren't, held accountable for a lot of, the stuff that they did at carriers that were maybe unethical.
Yeah.
And I think that's the right approach, especially if we want to make this industry better. And I think Highway's done a wonderful job at, actually improving this industry. And that's kind of like our mission at FreightCaviar too, is to provide more like information about this kind of stuff and educate people, while also entertaining, individuals. But I think education is
you gotta have you gotta have a good meme every now and then.
Yeah, a good meme. Yeah, memes are very educational.
Yeah,
you can learn a lot from a meme.
If nothing else, it begs the question. It'll make you think a little bit deeper about something.
Sure, exactly. Yeah. I've trained people using memes before back in the day, and I've heard people actually do training. Yeah, I mean, it was actually because like a lot of the memes that we make are from like real life situations that brokers deal with and carriers deal with. And if you could just explain the meme to someone, it's actually makes it more interactive, makes it more fun to learn.
Yeah. It's like immediate context, right? Like I remember when I was early in this business, all my friends thought I worked for UPS like 20 years ago. Like, so you're in logistics? I'm like, no, I don't work for UPS. Right? I'd take a call at the bar or something because back in the day, like I was after hours, like it was my cell phone number on the rate confirmation. And they just didn't get it. They didn't get it. And so it's interesting. I think you were the kind of pioneer of the freight meme, were you not? Like, was anybody doing that before you?
They were. So there was detention denied, I hate freight, and then USA Transportation, who is in trucks. Yeah. But like, so when I was at Everest, we used to just follow, all of us in the office, carrier sales, detention denied, and I hate freight. And they were just hilarious memes, and USA Transportation. So that's where I got my inspiration from. But they're like both of the guys that are running those pages are both brokers. And I think they maybe wanted to take it a little bit like deeper and make like a company out of it. But I was the first one to actually be like, all right, I'm going to actually turn this into a company.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out. And it's been a wonderful ride, and I have big plans for the future. So really looking forward to it. But yeah, so I wasn't the pioneer. I definitely have to give credit to Detention Denied and I Hate Freight for doing that, for creating the memes that we were utilizing when we were working, and always laughing and stuff. So Michael, I'm curious, like, do you foresee any big threat right now, like that, like brokers and carriers should be looking out for this year?
I need to be thoughtful about how I say this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Wirebee, the AI-powered call automation platform designed to supercharge your freight brokerage. Tired of wasting time on unqualified carriers? Wirebee helps you cover loads faster by screening calls, preventing fraud, and letting your reps focus on high-value connections. Plus, it seamlessly integrates with your TMS and compliance tools. Get more done in less time with smarter call handling. Check out wirebee.com to see how it works.
I'm going to keep doubling down on we serve freight brokers, and we are thoughtful about, in the South, we have this saying, you got to dance with the one that brung you, right? And so you dance with the person that brought you to the dance. What I'm seeing that's very concerning to me, if I was still an operator, are the amount of companies, technology or service companies, that went into market as former freight brokers or to serve freight brokers. They've raised a lot of capital. We're seeing a lot of consolidation, partnerships, acquisitions to these companies. And it's a lot of data consolidation that also sells to shippers. And so I do not believe that the go up market and sell to shippers is the answer. I do not believe that the constant chatter around the disintermediation of the freight broker is helpful to the freight economy or even to the shipper themselves. And so I think if I would just be aware of where your data goes and who you're doing business with and think about incentive alignment. What is the ultimate incentive of this company? And if the ultimate incentive is I will do anything I need to do to either grow EBITDA or to improve my enterprise valuation to flip this thing, like that's the incentive. And so I just think brokers have to be really thoughtful about that. And that's not to make a decisive remark or an accusation, but You follow the money, you look at the incentive alignment, right? So I don't know if it's a threat as much as I think it's noisy. And I don't think it actually helps the broker transact better with the shipper or the carrier. I think the answer is to build better trust among those entities. I think if you look at Zillow, like Zillow, I think tried to like buy houses and get into the housing game, and it didn't work well for them. Like the real estate agent hasn't gone away. We've seen real estate agents pick up more volume by using tools like Zillow and Redfin and Realtor. But I haven't seen an industry truly like the travel agent still exists. Like I don't go to Disney without like calling a human and being like, can you please take care of all that for me? Like, I don't want to do that. Like Disney's terrible enough if you're a dad. Someday, Paul, maybe you'll get to experience that. But it's bad enough. All the dads out there, like, dude, I know. Like, I call a Disney travel agent. Like my friends that travel and do European vacations from here, there's a person that they call. And so everyone has tools. Intermediaries in every business have better tools, but they don't go away. They change for sure, but they don't go away. And so I don't think it's a threat as much as it's going to be annoying. I think there's going to be a lot of here we go again in 2025, where it's like, okay, here we go again, right? Like all these people claim to serve the freight brokers, not a lot of innovation, and here they go, right? And they won't say that they're going to disintermediate the broker. They're going to say they serve brokers, carriers, and shippers, but like, do they?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think brokers have to be very aware of that.
Okay. So if you had to give one piece of advice to brokers and carriers, what would it be?
To brokers and carriers, find a way to work with each other. Like simple things, like what Dan Lindsay does with Broker Carrier Summit. Like just have conversations. I think one of the things I try to teach my kids, right, is we don't other people. We don't talk about people in groups. Humans have names. Like we don't say all those fill in the blank, right? We don't other people, right? We don't just assign like when you see things on commentary, like all brokers are scumbags. Really? Are they? All carriers are. Really? And so I think realize for brokers and carriers, that's what you asked about, is that there's a human on the other end of that transaction. There's a human being that is trying to raise a family, that is trying to, that's under a pile of debt right there. There's somebody in that truck, and that truck has dropped in value since they bought it, and they're upside down in it. There's a freight broker who's being given ridiculous, dumb scorecards that are impossible to meet and being charged out the nose for tracking solutions that don't work, that are just buried in cash flow problems, right? These are humans. These are human beings that are trying their best to do the right thing. Talk to each other and use their name. Like call someone. Hey, Paul, I had this really negative experience, right? The other thing I would say is be aware of recency bias. So oftentimes what happens is you'll have a really negative experience with a carrier, and then the next carrier pays for it. So earlier you're talking about freight brokers haven't been held accountable. Man, oftentimes a broker will have a string of bad experiences. Somebody didn't tarp a load, or they stole a load, or they lied about having a team. Like these are legitimate things, right? That like a carrier will do anything to get a load. They'll rail it. And so a broker will have a string of bad experiences. And like, that's just a familiar amount of like, I call it business trauma, right? And then the next 5 carriers pay for those last 10 experiences. And so I just think we could do a better job of just like raising our collective business acumen and just treating each other like human beings. Like be vigilant, be careful, but like operate in zero trust environments, like use highway, be transparent, and then let service level conversations be service level conversations, not like these people are bad humans. Like, let's not do that. Like if we can change that culture around the othering of people, all carriers are this, all brokers are that, like TQL gets it the worst. There's some really good people at TQL. I know them personally.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's some really good people there. Some great people at some of these large brokerages. I mean, that's what I would say. I don't know if that's fair. That's a little squishy. It's not like a big.
I mean, I agree with you,
but like
we need more empathy. I agree. I mean, like, this industry is all just like digital, like emails, like phone calls. You don't get to see the actual person behind that phone. And I think it also leads to like, the issues that we face here. Like, we need to build stronger relationships and be more, talk to each other more. I think that's great advice, and I think a lot of times like that's like overlooked, but that would solve so many problems that we have. It's just talking it through. Michael, I mean, I always enjoy talking to you. I feel like you're just you're like really down to earth, but you're also like very like intelligent and just like easy to talk to. So I really do. Thank you. I really do appreciate our convos, and we'll have to do more of these. Hopefully it's not in a year from now. Maybe we could get some
November in Chattanooga. We should do it in November in Chattanooga.
It's actually in October this year. I'm not sure if you saw that. I have
is it?
It's end of, I think it's like October 22nd to the 24th.
Are you going to be in the States in May?
No, I won't be. Where will you be in May?
We're sponsoring the Freight Fraud Symposium in Dallas.
Okay.
And so I was gonna say, if you're gonna be in Dallas, you come to the office and we could do a whole thing. We could do a whole thing in the highway office.
Maybe I'll have to fly in for that. We'll see. Yeah, I had a last minute trip to El Paso. Maybe I'll have a last minute trip to Dallas.
So, dude, do you have status on like every airline now? Like,
no,
are you like the points guy?
So I'm actually, I'm a frequent traveler for Miles and More Lufthansa, but I'm actually switching over to United right now because United miles are so much better than Lufthansa miles and more. So like, because I'm switching over, it's a little bit more difficult. And I honestly like, dude, I fly economy. I usually buy the cheapest fare. So like, there's times where I fly with like
Paul, you don't fit there.
You know
like
what?
You physically don't fit in that part of the airplane.
I don't. But so oftentimes they'll give me emergency exit seat, or I'll get like a bulkhead seat, which is fine. And like, okay, so I used to fly business class, especially when I worked for Everest, and you kind of get spoiled by business class, and then like all of a sudden you can't fly economy because business class is like 1,000 times better, and it's true, it is better. But I get really humble when I sit in an economy seat, and I feel really good when I'm paying, like I'm not paying for business class. I could fly round trip for like $600, and that's like almost like the same price that you'd probably be paying from Chattanooga to Dallas. Maybe, I don't know what the cost is there, but
it's about that. It's about $600 flying out.
Yeah, so like it's I don't know. I get really humbled when I fly economy, and I want to keep it that way. I don't want to be like, oh, I need to fly business class. And as long as I have aisle seat, because my right knee needs the aisle so that I could breathe, because I've had 2 knee surgeries on it.
Yeah.
I get.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, it's not. That's what I'm saying. It's not about like a bougie thing. Like, it's literally like a physical.
I don't.
For you.
Yeah. No, it's true. I don't really fit in the seat, but I make it work. And honestly, like,
I imagine the gate agent, like when they see you coming, I wonder if they're like, we should probably do this guy solid. Like, this is not going to go well.
I once was flying from Honduras to Houston, back to Chicago. This is when I was in college. We did like a dental mission trip in Honduras. And I get on the flight, and I had like the last seat in economy, middle seat. And I asked like the flight attendant if there's like any chance I could get like an aisle seat. And he like told me to wait until everyone boarded the plane. And then once everyone boarded the plane, it was a full flight. He just moved me to business class. So that was a nice flight. And I sat next to some doctor eating a steak. But
all right, I have a closing question for you from a carrier's perspective, because I know you talked to a lot of carriers. I know you talked to a lot of technology providers. Agentic AI.
Okay.
What happens when there's 10 AI companies just robocalling motor carriers? Is there a point where our friends at motor carriers quit answering the phone, Paul? Like, what are you hearing about the motor carrier experience with? What I'm afraid of is it's going to be like nearshoring, where, we'll just go hire people. Like, does that actually solve a problem? I'd be really interested in your perspective. You've talked to a lot of the founders of these companies. You've talked to a lot of carriers. I'm really curious. Do you have a thesis on that from your conversations?
So I believe that carriers will also be implementing the agentic AI systems.
So the robots just going to talk to each other?
Yeah, they'll communicate, via the systems, and then if there needs a human intervention, a human will intervene, which will probably happen, once the load gets booked, or there's a problem that arises. But I think overall it's going that way, where you just have like systems communicating with systems, and then if like issues arise, that's when humans intervene, or if there's like something else that needs to get done. I think that's the way it's going to happen. But carriers will be slower at implementing agentic AIs into their company. So
can carriers train agentic AI to commit fraud?
Probably. We'll probably see some Eastern European agentic AI companies. They have their ELD companies. They have a lot of stuff that they do, and
they're vertically integrated now. I mean, they've got their own ELDs. Like, there's a lot of fraudsters that are like building, like, vertically integrated in terms of their white label ELDs. I just wonder. I mean, one of the things we think a lot about is the more we can reduce noise and friction between good players, the more they can have those empathetic human conversations, right? What can only a human do? Only a human. You can train on a bot to say things, but only a human can really have human to human empathy.
Yeah.
And really care and make decisions based on care and emotion. And so I'm curious if technology solutions like Highway paired with artificial intelligence solutions will help that in the short term, or if, and again, I don't have a thesis, but I'm curious if we're going to have to go through some pain of like over depending on agentic AI. Like, is it going to create additional fraud vectors that ultimately come to my desk because there's this mad dash to just put everything on AI?
Yeah.
And so if there's anything else I would encourage brokers to be thoughtful about, so when you're adopting new technology, let's not do what we did with digital booking. And like we created digital booking with no KYC. Hey, everybody book it now. I don't know who you are. I can't prove who you are, but I have an insurance certificate, so you should book all my loads. You have one truck, you can log in and book 20 loads. Let's not do the thing again where we adopt new technology without KYC and access management. Like, let's not do that. And I think I just wonder, are we going to see new fraud vectors as agentic AI grows? We should talk about that more. We should have a follow-up about that. And you should dig into that with all of these folks that are rolling out all of these great agentic AI solutions. And I'd really be interested in where the motor carrier's concern is in interacting with these solutions. Like, is it going to be a better experience for them, or is it a one-sided solution? I don't have an opinion, but I'm curious.
Sure. I mean, that's a great topic, Michael, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I'll do some digging here. I'll talk to some carriers. I'll see how it's looking like. I've seen some comments that were kind of negative from carriers when we posted some stuff, but that's all so far. I'll keep it in mind though, and we should definitely do a follow-up call as well.
Maybe when we do this again in a year, the robots will just be booking freight.
Yeah, maybe the robots will do an interview.
Yeah, and both the carrier and the broker will have G-Wagons with Reed, and it'll be great.
Bob has a G-Wagon now. Funny.
Does he? I think was that real? I saw that. Is that real? Bob really does have a G-Wagon?
Yeah, Bob has a G-Wagon.
That's amazing. Good for Bob. I know.
Yeah. Well, Michael, thanks again for joining us today. Had a great time with you. Time. I'll see you at TIA in a few weeks. So
yeah, see you soon, man.
Yeah, we'll talk then again.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Caviar Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, or if you didn't, leave a review. Let me know what you think. I appreciate any feedback. If you'd like to have more Caviar content, go to FreightCaviar.com and subscribe to my email newsletter.